This is the Balanced Advisor Podcast with Dr. Travis Perry, helping financial advisors like you achieve balance in their lives.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Balanced Advisor Podcast. I am your show host, as always, Dr. Travis Perry. Today, I have in studio with us Mr. Eric Roberg. Eric is the founder of Beyond Your Hammock. It's a fee-only financial planning firm based in Boston that specializes in providing services and investment management to professionals in their 30s and 40s. Eric has been featured in the Wall Street Journal, CNBC, Barron's, and the Boston Globe. And he's part of I have to start. I may have to do this over. He's part of Investment News. Okay. Yeah.
Can I jump in there?
Yeah, please.
Roberge.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. We will start the whole thing back over.
All right.
And so editing people will, hey guys, we're starting over. There we go. I have with me in studio, Eric Roberge, who is a CFP and founder of Beyond Your Hammock, a fee-only financial planning firm based in Boston that specializes in providing planning services and investment management to professionals in their 30s and 40s. He has been featured in the Wall Street Journal, CNBC, Barron's, and the Boston Globe. He's part of Investment News 40 Under 40 class of 2016 and has been named as one of Investopedia's top 100 most influential advisors and recently received Think Advisor's Luminary Award in 2021 for thought, leadership, and education. Eric, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Travis.
Yeah, you have quite the list of achievements for being in the industry as long as you have. That's fantastic, man. What got you into this industry to begin with? Tell us a little bit about your story. Everybody has a different way of getting here, but we'd love to hear yours.
Yeah, no, I think I was on a podcast recently, or a panel that with Hannah Moore, if anybody knows Hannah Moore out there, and she was like, I can get my history of what I've done down to like a minute. I'm like, wow, that's a challenge. Let me try that too. So I've been trying to do that lately. My entrance into the industry came from I would look at it as like a funnel. The end of the funnel, which was the widest gap, was just getting into the industry from a mutual funds perspective. So I worked with some of the bigger mutual fund companies / banks for the first 5 years of my career. And then really the delving into the world of financial advice was somewhat arbitrary. Of course, I wanted to be in finance and investments and help people, but getting in there was just a friend saying, hey, do you want to get your licenses and come on board and try it out? And I said, you know what, I'm sick of this corporate world. Let me try it. So 2007, November, perfect timing, jumped into the market and the market tanked. And for 5 years, I kind of bumbled along trying to figure out what kind of advisor I wanted to be. As most prospective clients understand, it's really hard to understand what an advisor does and how they do it and what incentivizes them. So I tried to figure out where I wanted to be. Eventually, long story short, got to a place where I was like, you know what, fee-only advice, where I want to be. No one's doing this working with younger people thing. No one else is going to let me do it if I work for them. So I'm going to start my own business. So 2013, we started Beyond Your Hammock, and it's been 8 years of growing the firm since.
That's awesome. Yeah, you've had some incredible strides as you've entered the industry. I too, I was in the industry since 2001, really 2002, when I got my licenses. But 2007, I decided to start my own business. As an advisor, began the process towards getting the IRA set up right as the market decided to tank. So I feel your pain, and boy, it's been a wild ride, hasn't it?
Yeah, no, it's been great. I mean, getting in when we did, I'm going to say we because it sounds like you were there too, was great because I could ride the market down without a bunch of clients trying to strangle me, right? So I could really understand what was happening in the worst of it and learn from that, while also gaining the experience to, ride the market back up for the last 10 years or so, and experience, everything that's happened in between.
Yeah, love that. Now, one of the things I noticed we talked in the pre-show, and I've seen you speak before, and I've heard some of your story, and I'm quite honestly amazed at what you've been able to do in such a quick period of time. But beyond your hammock, really, you also host Beyond Finances, and I failed to mention that in the intro. You do a lot of content, both in written and in spoken word. How has that helped your business to really grow?
It's been incredible. It's been the driving force behind the growth, really. My number one priority when I started the business was to get in front of as many people as possible. And what better way to do that than put evergreen content on the internet? So it's just been content ever since, starting with the industry, speaking to advisors, trying to get my name out there to advisors who didn't do what I did and therefore might refer to me because younger clients are not their bread and butter. And then venturing into writing for major publications that have their own traffic that drive back to my website, and continuing to get quoted in the media and gain exposure wherever I can, just to get those backlinks, create the content, build trust online before I meet anybody. And then if prospective clients are coming back to my website and signing up for a call, they kind of know me before they know me. And then we can start the process from there. Yeah,
100%. Love it. Love what you're doing. We'll dive into that a little bit deeper through the interview today. But I'm a big believer in getting content out there, allowing the evergreen material to scale the business with you and really for you. So much applaud what you're doing. So let's talk a little bit on the personal side. You're married. I know you have you had a baby, right? You guys had a baby a little while back. 2 in there? Or is it just you have your one baby?
Just one and 2 cats.
And 2 cats. That's right. There was 2 cats. So, I mean, you've got a family life, and your wife's involved in the business too, right?
She is. Yeah. She's been the content creator. She's the mastermind behind most of our content in the past, 5 years or so, which has been very helpful for us.
Yeah. So you guys do have a balance here, right? I mean, she's not just involved in her own thing, but involved in the business. You work together, and with the content driving a lot of what you do and her being behind a lot of that. Let's talk about what your definition of balance is. I'd love to hear from you. Like, what is it? What would you say balance is for you?
Balance, I feel like balance is a misnomer in a sense, because the word itself might mean equal parts. And I don't believe that life has to be equal parts work and play. I look at it as if you have oil and water in a bucket and you shake the bucket a bit and you have those waves, right? They're still separate, but it changes how much volume it takes up in any one spot. So that's how we've lived our life. I mean, sometimes we're working really hard, a lot, throughout the weeks. Other times we're taking a week or 2 or 3 off to make sure that we can recalibrate things. So balance is very much a fluid level of work and play in our lives.
So great. I've heard literally every type of description of what balance is or isn't. That's pretty unique. I love that. Like oil and water separate, but it's fluid. And that's why I tried when I wrote this book to figure out, okay, what kind of image do I want on the front? Like we've got a up and down sort of very fluid in movement. Those of you watching the video, and referring back to the book cover, there is movement here. So I like that. I like that analogy of what you've come up with. And a lot of it has to do with, where you're focusing your priorities. And so you mentioned sometimes you're working really hard. Sometimes you're playing, really hard. Do you have a method to that fluidity?
Well, I'd like to say that I have all the answers and everything's perfect behind the scenes, which is absolutely not. However, I think a lot about this stuff and I try to always implement something new. Not major changes all the time, but, baby steps in a way. So we just finished 74 client meetings this quarter. And we have April with no client meetings. Doesn't mean we're not working, but we're going to be reassessing things, taking a bit of a breather, maybe looking at how the process for client meetings was successful, how it wasn't, and then preparing for the next set from May to July after that. And we try to do that 3 times a year. So we have 3 months on, a month off every 3 months.
Yeah, that's really unique. I like that. I've heard other advisors who've done kind of the same, but in a different perspective. Like, hey, for 10 weeks, we're just going to be with everyone. That's it. The rest of the year, we're going to plan and prep, work on the business. Does that give you the time then to create all the content? Like, you're probably not doing a whole lot of content creation during this quarter when you're meeting with doing 74 client meetings, right? So when are you finding time to do the content?
Well, I mean, things are adjusting right now too with the baby. I mean, our daughter is 6 months old, so there's been a lot of time taken away from the business for good reason. Maybe a little bit less for me than it is for Kaylee, my wife. But she was and still is the content creator for most of the things. So writing client newsletters and articles and blogs and things like that. I give her maybe some ideas, but then she takes it and runs with it. So she's been the one doing that as I've been meeting with clients with my associate advisor. So there is that separation where I'm not doing both things at the same time. We have backed off on some of the content, and we were putting out, 20 pieces of content in some fashion every quarter, if not more than that, for the past several years, but we haven't had to do so much of that recently. And so we're just trying to figure out what's the next best thing to do. How do we keep the exposure without killing ourselves with extra content that actually isn't all that necessary?
Yeah. Yeah. I like to call it, times and seasons. There's times in our lives where we need to maybe focus really hard for a quarter, like tax season might, if you're doing some tax planning, you're probably helping your clients either before or after, or if you're a CPA and you're like, that is my time. Obviously that is part of the times, but seasons in your life, it might just be a season of life where, like, okay, now we're going to focus on the baby and, maybe not create so much content, whatever it is. I get that. Because again, that's more of the fluid analogy you mentioned before. And I mean, if we look at markets go up, markets go down. We got bull markets, we got bear market that we're approaching. And, we see some imbalance in the market all the time. It's very similar, I think, in life, that we have these ups and down moments or times where we need to just refocus. As an advisor and someone who has, had a lot of content, and now you have a baby and you've got your wife who's working with you, like you've got some dynamics that probably most advisors aren't really dealing with in that sense, right? But some might relate to this. What would you say are your biggest issues in trying to achieve your, fluidity? I mean, is it that maybe sometimes you get stuck with trying to be too regimented, or like, where is it for you that the balance issue might be maybe taking the biggest hit?
Well, I was texting with another advisor recently, and I was saying how it's really important to plan for wherever you're going. Obviously, as planners, that's key. But if you don't plan and you don't take action, you're still taking an action. So I think the hardest thing is to say, this is the direction we're going to go in next, and commit to that and not waver with it. So our challenge right now is to figure out how to expand capacity in a way that increases profits and time away from the business. And all those things seem to be at odds with one another, right? More clients would increase revenues. Well, more clients is more time in the business and less time away from the business. So does it mean hiring somebody else? We have an associate advisor, like I said. Does it mean hiring another lead advisor? Does it mean hiring an operations manager, kind of a client service associate that's not planning directly related, which we actually have a job opening for that now? Does it mean cutting down clients? Does it mean increasing the level of assets that we bring on for new clients? I mean, there's a lot of different knobs to twist, which is great. It's just the combination of those has to be right, just like any financial plan, so that everything works out and everything's working together, and it's not just a tug of war contest between each segment of my life.
Yeah, well said. And scaling the business without losing the quality of work that you're doing with your clients is crucial, right? So, then finding the right people. And I think episode 6, don't quote me on this, I think episode 6, we talk with Stephanie Roberts, who has a company called Humans Being Resources. And it is a play on words, but it's true. Like, humans are the resources we probably should invest in the most. But you talked about, do we hire someone? Do we, cut down on clients? What's the combination? What's the balance here? Well, very well said. What do you think? You've met a lot of other advisors who are out there. They probably have those same issues, just depending on, where they are in the business. But what other issues besides that might they experience when it comes to balance? You've observed them. You've seen the industry. You were in the mutual fund companies. You know what's going on in a different realm. So maybe speak to us there. Maybe even your prior, experience. What other advisors have had when it came to, achieving their sense of balance?
I think the biggest challenge, and this doesn't just go for advisors, but probably goes for all people and clients included, is that highlighting your specific personal values and the values that you have as a family is so important, because otherwise the goals that you create are just kind of made up, right? If they're not connected to the values, then it could sound good. Like, an advisor could say, I want to hit $1 million in revenue. Okay, great. Why? And if you say that, like, what's keeping you from saying, now it's 2 million, now it's 3 million? Where's enough? So just trying to figure out where enough is in what categories of your life, and how to experience all of those things again, so they work well together, right? You can be in the business and you can be able to provide value to clients, which helps you feel good about yourself. If you're an advisor, that's kind of your goal, and create a revenue and profits for your family, while also being able to step away and be with your family, help, my daughter grow up, and spend time with your family, take vacations, and enjoy the fruits of your labor. So I think it's really not being clear on what you're actually going after in the short term, in the long term, that makes people confused about where they should expend their energy.
Yeah, love it. I'm all about the values. I'm all about connecting values to goals. So you hit a main vein on this one. So I'm gonna push back a little bit and ask you, like, for you, how do you discover those goals and values? Really, the values, because the goals are connected. But what have you done to really discover those values for yourself?
Well, one of the easiest way to get the ball rolling, just to think about these things, is I always default to going to James Clear website. And if you search James Clear values, you're going to come up with a list of 52 values, right? Not all inclusive, but a good list to start from. And Kaylee and I have, probably 4 years ago now, did this when we were getting married, was to create our own set of values and then collaborate on what would be a combined list of 5 values, which don't have to be the same values that you had in your personal list, but certainly need to be values that you want to bring into the relationship going forward. Maybe you don't have those values appearing yet, but you want to strive toward those things. So doing that, and then doing that again every so often, because you will change, your values will evolve, will keep you in line. And you can continue to tie your goals to those values as you continue to do that exercise.
Love it. Yep. Research does support what you're suggesting. In fact, I brought this up because it's sitting right here. I don't normally have my dissertation sitting right here on my desk, but I had it. I was showing my sales and marketing director some stuff from this the other day. But the association between shared values and well-being among married couples. Yeah, it was a well-being study that I did for basically my capstone project, my dissertation work for my doctorate. But when couples have shared values, they're more likely to be happier individually, psychologically, have a better marriage. They have higher marital satisfaction scores, and they also are connected to achieving financial stability. Some people call this duh research. Maybe it is duh research, but I have the research to back it up. Like, yes, this is true. What you and your wife did is beautiful. Like, you discovered what your values are, and you looked where these overlaps are and set your own values for yourself, your family, and as a couple, and working on those together is super, crucial. What do you and your wife do to now put those values into action? Do you revisit those? Do you create goals from that to try and work toward them? What do you guys do?
It's an ongoing conversation. We make sure that we're having, sometimes it's daily. Other times it's weekly. Maybe sometimes we find ourselves not having talked about it in a month, and we say, we should really sit down and have these conversations. A lot of times they're off the cuff, right? They're just exploring different ideas, which is why I love her so much. Is just she always thinks and has these ideas, and she brings them up, and I do the same. So we can just kind of spitball about different things and just try to figure out what makes the most sense for us now. What might make the most sense in the future? Do we have any hard and fast rules? Do we have things that we definitely don't want in our life? Where do we want to live? How do we want to live? Do we want to travel? Do we not want to travel? Is family important? And how much time do we spend with family? And where does Talia go to school when she gets old enough to do that? Like all these things are it's a constant flow of ideas. And our job is to take those conversations and put them into action, which is the hardest thing because people get busy and it's really tough to nail that down and go for it.
Yeah. I call this rebalancing. Just like we rebalance a client's portfolio, we need to rebalance our goals, our lives, our values. So I love that you have those off the cuff or even monthly conversations or weekly. Highly, highly recommend that. I love this. This is so good. I had no idea we were go this direction. I knew you guys were, you have a good marriage and you're great examples of not just being great advisors, but good people. Like I just felt that about you, but you're preaching to my choir right now of stuff that I talk about all the time. So I love this, Eric. Thank you. What would you say like to advisors who maybe they struggle with this balance in general? Like everybody has their different issues, but I do know this. I know that when couples are helping each other and they're on the same page, you're going to help each other keep balance, right? So that's a big part of it. But maybe they struggle with their relationship. Maybe they struggle with their own values or managing that time. It could be a lot of different things. But what would you say as someone who has really been able to achieve balance that has really helped you? 1, 2, 3 things that in addition to what you've already given us so far.
I was actually thinking of a similar topic this morning, and I was reflecting on that. And really what it comes down to is the fact that I did a lot of focused time on me, right? And this happened to be in my late 20s into my early 30s. And it continues now, but like heavily toward the end of my 20s, where I was trying to dig in to figure out who I was, what was causing me to be the way I was and think the way I did and want what I want. Looking back at my relationship with my parents and really doing the hard work to uncover the things that were getting in my way and the things that would help me going forward. And I tend to take that for granted now, but that was a lot of work. It was hard to do. And a lot of people don't go there, right? They're never really honest with themselves. Or if they are honest, maybe they don't dig deep enough to understand what all the layers are and why they are who they are. So I would 100% just, it's not an easy take an hour, take a weekend, figure things out, but start to look there if you haven't before, to really be honest with yourself, to understand what makes you tick. You don't have to be perfect because I am by far not perfect, but because I know who I am and I've helped improve areas of my life, but also understand where I have the most challenges, I can better work with myself. And if I can better work with myself, I can better communicate and work with other people, including my wife. And if we can both do that same thing, then that's gold.
So good. Yeah. Developing both as an individual and as a couple, which the last section of my book, I really hit hard into personal development because I think that's where a lot of people stop. If they get started with developing as an individual, thinking, okay, this is going to help me to be productive, stay productive, and not fall into the workaholic trap, which I describe in the book, basically is, workaholism. But that's going to keep me out of it. But they don't take it a step further, which you have. You've taken a step further with your wife and you talk values, you talk goals, you work as a great team. Like you guys are power couple, like a stellar example of what you should be. You're a balanced couple. And I love that. So thanks for letting us in on that. And, really what I've seen as I coach clients who get this and they make it happen, they stay balanced. Yes, there's always a rebalancing, right? It's fluid, as we've talked about. But the reason why they stay balanced and don't completely fall off the wagon continually over and over again is because they have each other and they learn to work together on this. So your voice, adding it to, this podcast and having you as a testimonial to this concept without having been through this program, but you figured this out. Like, it makes sense to you. And it's just very natural. So I appreciate you being able to share that, Eric. I didn't know we'd go this direction, and podcasts often go in many different directions, but it's been fantastic just to sit back and listen to. If other advisors want to connect with you and they want to follow and see what kind of content, where do they go? How do they stay connected with you?
Well, I would say our blog is pretty active. So that's at least monthly. There's a new blog out there. So you can go to my website at beyondyourhammock.com. Otherwise, just if you search my name, Eric Robert, CFP, I'm sure there's a million different articles that will come up through Business Insider and Kiplinger and places like that, Forbes. We try to get as much content out there about what we live, right? Yep. What we live and what we experience with our clients who are in their 30s and 40s. We're trying to talk about those things. We're not trying to create an idea or a topic to attract people. We're just being authentic about what we live and how we teach people to do the same. And those are the articles that we create.
Love it. Yeah. Love the website, beyondyourhammock.com. Definitely, if you want to learn more about what Eric's done and see how it's helped, scale his business, propel going forward. Just the fact how transparent and authentic you are, Eric. Thank you very much. Thank you for taking the time to be here and share with the industry, the things that have kept you balanced but successful. Like, at the same time, it's so refreshing. So appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. These conversations really attract me. So thank you for having it with me.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. And everybody, share this podcast, the episode, definitely subscribe. And anyone who needs to hear a little bit of Eric today, please send it along. And thanks again.